Another thing is I haven't released it yet, but I've been working on grouping all of the varieties I've tasted together. So like Dark Star, Kwangong self-fertile, I can name like six that taste like Dark Star. We should all know that. And I think that's something that especially sellers don't share. I'm not going to share it till it's done,
Mm.
because it might hurt some feelings too, because I'm even ranking them as tiers. So I'm calling them tier one, tier two, and tier three, which to me are ornamental. Hope I answered that question, but I feel like it could be done really well or done out of support or pureness of improving the community or just for profit. A lot of people want to look at dragon fruit as cash cows.
Good. And I guess what drives this generosity and I guess just genuine interest in doing good for the community? Like I'm sure with everything that you've got, it'd be so easy, 400, 600 varieties, increase the price by $5, $10, whatever. It'd be so easy to do. What drives you and how do you keep doing what you're doing? Because it's such an admirable thing. It's just such a great thing for the community. And we're very blessed to have someone like yourself here for us.
Well, thanks, man. I've never thought of it that way. I honestly felt more like an outsider in the past year of the community than ever. But that doesn't stop me. I just feel passionate about really good fruit. And I think that it's only getting started. I feel like dragon fruit's gonna just keep growing if everybody makes it accessible for other people. And keeping prices fair. I mean, to me, I think you can go to Home Depot or whatever, a big box store, and 10 to 20 bucks is a fair price for most plants, rooted or not. And I'm doing a lot of things that I don't share. Like I set up a farm, this really cool grower. She's not online, but she had a budget, and she couldn't believe how many plants I gave her rooted for her budget. But I really focus for her is she wants to do farmers markets. So I'm having her try a lot of megalanthus hybrids that will be producing fruit in the spring. So she could theoretically be like the only dragon fruit grower in California with fruit in the spring.
Yeah.
And she was down to try it and trial it out. And so she has like Desert Weed, Diego's Desert King, Pelora, which doesn't do so well here. And some other similar hybrids like that, like a Cyrong's Orange Dragon. Not too many people know what that one is, but that's personally one of my favorite off-season fruit. Grows really well. And I have like a dozen fruit on the plant, and they'll sit there all winter and be ripe in the spring. So to me, I've been exploring that DNA for a couple of years now. I haven't really shared that, but I have many hybrids of those DNA because I really want to focus on having more fruit in the spring. Because in market-wise in California, at least, I'm not sure about Australia, but all the big farms, their fruit all ripens at the same time.
Yeah,
So
right.
there's this huge mass influx of fruit. It goes to the stores or they go to LA and
Mm.
poof, it's gone.
Yeah.
So if you're familiar with Dragon Delights, the farm in Ramona, California, pretty close by. They're on social media on Facebook. Probably one of my favorite farms to tour. They do they invite people to come and pollinate at night. They do pollination parties. Uh,
That's cool.
yeah, they're really cool. But Kevin, the owner, did. Yeah, they're really cool. But Kevin, the owner, did. He shared the most innovative thing I heard when on our tour. He said that he will cover his sugar dragons with shade cloth, and then other ones he won't to phase in his fruit. Meaning the ones unshade cloth, they're producing fruit earlier, and that stretches out his season. So I think like strategies like that are brilliant, but also I think if you can explore enough DNA and hybrids and intergenetic hybrids, I feel like we could have fruit twice a year in California, twice a season, in other words, like a winter crop and a summer crop.
And I guess if you are getting fruit at different times of the year and it's fresh rather than frozen, because I know here, if you go to any of the supermarkets or anywhere, at least up sort of in Queensland, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Queensland. Queensland's like northern Australia. Up there, it's a lot better growing than sort of down further south where I am. There's plenty of fruit and it's quite cheap up in Queensland. But for New South Wales, near Sydney, where I am based, you get fruit in these supermarkets and markets, and they're mostly imported. They're not ripe, they're not very sweet, that kind of thing. But if you are getting, I guess, more people into it, and you're getting, I guess, fruit released at different periods where it's a lot closer to being fresh rather than You get it fresh, and then in a couple of months' time, you get the frozen fresh from 6 months ago. You're going to keep building that interest in it. You're probably going to get more growers. You're going to get more interest. So the farms probably ramp up or expand. So you're getting more fruit. With more fruit, you're probably getting better prices. And the circle continues. And hopefully that's better for everyone, I guess, in the dragon fruiting community. But yeah, it's a bit of a way to get there, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not sure about in your country, but in our country, I feel like I think the imported fruit from the white flesh mainly from Thailand or Vietnam especially, the farmers here can't compete with the price.
Yeah.
So a lot of we get dumped with Pelora in the spring, and you could buy a Pelora fruit for $3 here, which is a good deal. And which I think is good, but the farmers locally, at least the ones I know, they're very clear that they can't afford to have that price.
Yeah.
So that's another factor, is at least in California, it might be too expensive to grow unless you're doing these off-season fruit, like I said,
Mm.
which I think have potential. And then I've experimented for the past year dehydrating them, and I got inspired from Jackie. Actually, she really taught me to try that. She's an awesome South African grower. If you don't know her, but she really inspired me to dehydrate, and now I'm enjoying dragon fruit year round because I literally have a half a fridge full of dehydrated dragon fruit,
Yeah. How many
and
fridges
it's
do you have?
weird. That's weird. What's
How,
that?
how many fridges do you have? Because I'd imagine, what is that, two dragon fruit fridges or just two fridges?
No, we have one in the house and then one in the garage that I take over as my Waterloo slash dragon fruit spot. But like I said, I mean, I give fruit to friends. I like to take them wherever we go and
Yeah.
see people's reactions. And now that I'm dehydrating them as they ripen, that's really kind of keeping me. But honestly, next season, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll have more fruit than I know what to do with.
Fair enough, fair enough. No, very good. And I guess that leads to, what is your favorite variety like to taste? Like if you could pick one variety, what's your favorite to taste?
Man, that's a hard question. I would have to say I like Paul Thompson's hybrids, especially physical graffiti. I call 1S. I have noticed that people have different versions of it, so that's why there might be some inconsistencies. That the 1S I have, and I've seen a few people with it, it kind of oranges up the skin, and I feel like that's the true physical graffiti. But that fruit is hard to beat. American Beauty is really hard to beat, but a lot of people won't share the fact that most of the Guatemalans, I grow 40 Guatemalans alone, like G series, and they all taste so similar
Yeah.
and they look so similar. And that's an extremely dominant trait. I've been
Yeah.
hybridizing with it for a few years now, and it's all the plant material looks just like the Guatemalan. This is extremely dominant, but at the same time, that is a great fruit. So if I had to pick one, I can't. I'd have to say 1S and American Beauty
Yeah. Gotcha. Fair enough.
or any Guatemalan because they all taste so similar.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tasted them back to back to back, 10 Guatemalans at once, and I couldn't tell the difference. And I labeled them, but they all taste so similar. So,
Yeah.
don't think that Juno is going to be way better than some of the other popular ones like G3 or G1 or what's that one that's really popular now that I can't remember. Condor also is a really good one, but
Yeah.
most people have the wrong Condor.
Yeah.
So some of the local farms here sold a self-fertile condor, but the true condor is actually self-sterile, and it
Mm.
and it produces a lot of three spines instead of the two to single.
Yeah, right. There you go. And I guess that leads on to my next question. Say there's some sort of emergency, God forbid that happens. You're out in the yard, you only got time to save one trellis or one pot. What are you grabbing?
Man, that would be hard. Probably some of the ones I've never shared yet because I'm
Yeah.
really excited about them. Some of my own hybrids,
Yeah.
just they're very, and maybe probably honestly, probably the seedling I found at Leo's house after he passed away.
Okay. I want to throw in a little curveball for you there. So just see how you're traveling.
Yeah, that was hard, man. I can't just pick one. I'm a plant hoarder.
Yeah, very good. Is there a unicorn variety? Is there something you're after and you just haven't been able to get? Or is there something, I guess, that got away and you're like, damn, I wish I didn't bin that or something like that?
Hmm. Early on I kind of was too harsh on some of my hybrids that I was like, oh, that one has too much rust, and I just threw it away.
Mm,
And I feel like, well, in hindsight, I was growing it in Fox Farms, amended
mm.
with Fox Farm soil. And it's like, well, maybe that was the problem. It got all those pathogens due to my poor decision of potting soil. But yeah, that's a hard one. I can't really say for sure.
Someone also asked when I posted in the Dragon Fruit Australia page, is there any update or any information you can share? Because you haven't done it in a little while, and there may be a reason behind it, and I'm happy to cut this out if there's a reason why you haven't posted anything about it. The chimera graft, the one I think where you mix two varieties at the spine, is there any update or anything happening on that front?
I did an update like a year ago, but that's a whole nother can of worms that
Yeah,
I would like you to not delete, but I cannot replicate it. I
yeah,
can't replicate it, and I'll say this, knowing what I know now, I feel like I don't truly believe what was said about the Wallace Ranch hybrid. I truly believe that knowing what I know now, it's probably an Ocamponus of some sort. The plant material is very similar to my Trisha crossed with Hylocereus undatus,
Mhm. Okay.
and to where I could put those two plants together and I can't tell the difference. So I don't truly, personally, my humble opinion, I don't believe that it was the two crosses that he said. It was Sugar Dragon and I can't remember offhand. Sorry, but I feel like I can't, like I said, I can't repeat it. I can't replicate it. And I will have a video on it in the spring. I have two top in the trellis.
Yeah,
And I have one that I've cut off all of the thorns,
yeah,
all the nodes,
yeah,
and I want to see what's going to happen with that before I do my final kind of decision.
yeah,
But is it possible? It could be.
yeah,
I've had some growers say that these highly stressed dragon fruit plants that almost died had totally changed when they came back, and
yeah.
they
Right.
weren't the same plants. So I think under extreme stress, some things can happen.
Yep.
And I don't want to discredit Julio's work. That's Julio.
Yep.
I don't want to discredit his work or what he said. Maybe he mislabeled it, or maybe he just got really lucky. But there's a Darwin theory about it that I'm not very familiar with. But Darwin had a theory on that it is possible.
Okay.
So, is it possible? Maybe, but can I replicate it? No. I've tried a half a dozen times and I've had enough with that. It's just not a priority now. But I'll do another update in the spring once I kind of show. I was kind of hoping it would flower and fruit just to be like, hey, this sugar dragon's still sugar dragon.
Yeah, right. So with the one that you're potentially going to release later this year, to the community, you got the union and there's some sort of new growth. Is that right? But you're unsure
I
if
have
it's
Oh, I have three, and I've done what was said is I kept pruning off the growth,
Mhm.
and then two of them I just let them grow, and they have Maria Fusia and Sugar Dragon growing up, and it looks the same.
Yep.
But again, it looks the same versus actually flowering and fruiting are different things.
Yep.
So I feel like I don't have enough evidence to say it's very hard and maybe not easy to replicate. But like I said, I can't replicate it. I just really want to see them fruit before I can make that final say that it's extremely rare. It could be possible, I think these plants again are more mysterious than we know. And if you know other plants, like the history of the navel orange, if you learn how that came to be, that was a mutant that came out of nowhere. And then if you know the Caracara orange, that was a mutant off of a navel. So in other plants, it's possible. And I also learned a really cool thing is grafting wise is that citrus growers, really good citrus growers, actually use three rootstocks to get different traits and then remove two of them at the end.
Yeah. Right.
So, and then really big citrus farms swear to me that depending on the rootstock you use can affect when the fruits ripen and when the flavor. So to me, if it can happen in oranges, who's to say it can't happen in citrus and other things? So, I think that there's a lot of opinions, but I think there's just not enough research.
Very cool. Do you have a bit of advice for a new grower that doesn't really know where to start?
A new grower, what I always tell them is start with something easy and forgiving. You can't go wrong with a sugar dragon. You can't go wrong with American Beauty. People say that they're more sensitive. I feel like if you're growing in sand or a compost-free potting soil mix, I feel like American Beauty and those Guatemalenses are very resilient. And they do a lot better than most other varieties, in my experience. So I would probably push for those really easy varieties, especially if they are self-fertile, for starters. Like I said, if you're a grower that's new and you have five trellises, I would say don't worry about self-fertility. But I do also recommend like a value of a sugar dragon because it's the first to bloom and also the last to bloom. So timing wise, at least here, Paul Thompson hybrids, they all bloom at the same time late in the season.
Mhm.
So for me over the years, it was hard to have a pollen source to cross-pollinate them.
Yeah.
And then luckily some of my Orahona hybrids always line up for flowering.
Yeah.
So I am able to use my Orahona hybrids to pollinate, cross-pollinate each other. And that's just been a game changer. So knowing that, a lot of the varieties won't bloom all the time at the same phases. A lot of varieties won't actually bloom until after the summer solstice here. And a lot of people online will say other things, or maybe they'll get some random buds, or they're thinking that if they fertilize the heck out of it, they'll get buds earlier. But I'm learning that it's really dependent on the microclimate and the temperature. And especially for budding for us, I mean, it was helpful to do gypsum, but I really believe a temperature differential is what causes ours to bud. So like we had a really long, weird summer last summer where it was a lot of hot days, but we didn't get cold at night. And
Yeah.
that sort of delayed the whole season, not just at my place, at all the farms too.
Yeah, right.
So we're always victims of the climate as well. So knowing your climate and knowing just some varieties that are gonna grow well and be easy to maintain, that's a
Yeah.
good starting point.
Nature always sort of has the final say in a way, I guess you can say.
Yes, sir.
What's a common misconception that people have about growing dragon fruit?
Well, a misconception is probably that you need to do a wooden trellis. I see a lot of people always doing that wooden trellis or using a big piece of cement at the bottom
Mhm.
of your pot, or using even a terracotta pot or a ceramic pot. And I'm learning that that really can delay a plant's growth. The black pots I use, I've noticed that if I put a terracotta pot and a black pot next to each other, the black pot always wakes up and blooms sooner.
Yeah,
And
right.
I think it's due to that heat. Again, they really like getting their roots warm.
Yeah.
That big chunk of concrete at the bottom of your pot, your trellis, that's going to make it cold. Some
Mm.
people add a lot of gravel too, and I've noticed that that's not good for plants most times.
Oh, interesting. Very good. Hadn't
Yeah.
really thought of that myself. That's a cool little take. Nice.
I just, and then we get a bit of wind out here. So I see a lot of people like, their plants are falling over after 3 years and they're sad and,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I understand the trellis has to look good too. So, I mean, my trellises aren't much to look at, but I can hang on them and they're not going to fall because it's a couple hundreds of pounds of concrete. So yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah. One of my favorite ways is actually just growing them pretty much in a pot and the dragons sort of cascade over the rim of the pot. You save that 12 months growing up and over the trellis. The branches are immediately becoming that canopy. I find that's a massive shortcut. If you're a bit iffy on whether you want to keep something or whether you sort of want to give a cutting to a friend or share around or whatever, if you just grow it straight out, I find it can really save that time. And it's not obviously going to have as much meat, so it might not be as necessarily flavorsome straight away, but you can get that earlier fruit, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. Or you can also just let it go up and over like one
Mm.
branch, train one branch up and over. And even like if a branch starts growing in the off season here, if we get that up and over, it will fruit by the end of that season. So doing those two strategies, I think, are really important rather than trying to. I see a lot of people pruning off things because it has a little spot of rust or something. It's like, well, that might take you a whole nother season to fruit now.
Yeah. And that actually led to my next question was are you a tip at the top of a trellis guy or are you a cascade over the top? What's your preferred approach?
It's always dependent on the plant
Yeah.
and the timing. There's so many factors actually. So it's the factors I think, and I want to get it to fruit as soon as possible, especially if it's something I haven't had,
Mm.
just to make sure it's as advertised, and make sure it's going to taste like gummy bears and Fruit Loops or whatever people name their new variety.
Fair, fair enough. So, as you were sort of mentioning earlier on today, and I think I saw it on social media as well, you managed to nearly lose a couple of fingers the other day with a chainsaw-related mishap, and
Yes, sir. Not too bad.
very good. And I mentioned earlier too about the dragon fruit, not the dragon fruit, the cactus earlier on in one of your videos took the tumble. Do you have any other sort of clangers around the yard? Any funny moments, any bloopers that you think everyone would like to hear that you probably haven't released?
Man, probably people don't want to hear it, but my shoulders dislocate all the time. So that's quite a bit of pain. So
Yeah.
then right before I cut my chainsaw, I had it's 7 stitches, not too bad. And I got really lucky because it was wearing gloves and I had a really sharp new blade. So anyways, right before that, my shoulder popped out, and I used to ride skateboards on vert ramps as a kid, and
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna be the next Tony Hawk, you know. So I got some injuries, so I've had surgery and stuff, and they can't really put me back together. So yeah, you'd be surprised how often my shoulders pop out. So that's usually the biggest mishap is, you know, I'll be sitting there on the ground freaking out, and my kids are like, "What's wrong with you now? Your shoulder popped out." I was like, "Yep." But I don't know. I think my wife wants me to go back to the doctors because I got fixed in 2002. So she
Yeah.
says things have really progressed in medicine that they could probably fix it now. But
Yeah.
the biggest problem, I mean, the reason why I don't want to go is because I don't how can I help my dragon fruit if I'm out for 6 weeks, one arm? You know, like that makes no sense.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So when you were, I think there was a video maybe probably 2 years ago where you were carrying your kaslau over your shoulder. I assume that wouldn't have been particularly great on the arm, the shoulder, the neck.
Well, it's a quick movement. So stuff
Yeah,
like that, if I'm, you know, I have my like muscle memory, I know the angles I could do, but sometimes I just don't think. But no, that Kaslau was one of the harder things. Luckily, I had some people help me that day though. So when I moved Kaslau, I had two people help me.
yeah.
But sometimes I move a lot of things by myself and I do a lot of dumb things all the time, you know, that I shouldn't. That's part of just my personality, you know. I like you can see, everything I do, I put 100% into it, you know.
And at the end of
For
the
better
day,
or
if
worse.
it's not enjoyable what you're doing, you're probably less likely to do it. So if it feels like a massive chore, it's not going to be something at the top of the priority list and it'll become sort of dilapidated and that kind of thing. So got to make it fun, whether it's dragging along the ground behind you or what. But no, fair enough. Cool, cool. Thanks, thanks for sharing that one.
Yeah.
Not what I was
I,
expecting, not what I was
that,
expecting, but interesting.
yeah, I mean, it's been like that for 20 years now, but the bad thing is my right one doesn't hurt when it pops out. I can just like pop it in. I would do that and not skip a beat, but my left one is now the problem. So
Yeah, fair enough.
I just hope both of them popping out at once never happens because I'll be a that'll be a rough day.
Yeah, very good. You'd be slithering around like some of the snakes I've seen in your yard as well. So, not ideal, not ideal. And I guess just my last question. I thought I'd leave a little fun. It's not so much fun, but something a little bit interesting. I guess just to really sort of see you as a whole. You've got a dinner party next weekend. You can invite three people. They can be gardeners, they can be celebrities, they can't be family and probably not friends. So someone that probably someone other than yourself would know. Who are you inviting and why?
Well, I'd have to go with Paul Thompson. I'd
Yeah,
go with Leo Manuel and Edgar Valdivia because they're to me the godfathers. You know, people portray them as the founding people, and I know that two of them have passed away,
yeah.
and I was lucky enough to be really close with one of them. But man, just to pick their brains in their prime because like it was so amazing spending years with Leo Manuel, who's such an underrated person,
Mhm.
so humble. Like nobody even knows that he actually wrote Paul Thompson's book. He would go and dictate about all the pictures, and I think I might rewrite it. I have the entire book, and then I even have his unreleased photos because he had
Yeah,
so many photos that are unreleased for the book,
yeah.
and most of them are Leo's property. And
Wow.
so he was just so humble, like, and Paul Thompson was really, I mean, there's a whole story on that, but
Yeah,
I don't want to go down that. But Leo deserves most of the credit for that book, in my humble
absolutely.
opinion. And so just to pick all their brains from like 1999,
Yeah,
like if I could go back in time, like that's what I would do.
yeah,
Especially Paul Thompson. But I did interview his neighbor pretty recently. That's in one of our new videos. And you'd have to really be a fan to understand it because some people gave some negative comments like this video is dumb, but I don't care about that. You know, to me, I did it for just to learn. Like
yeah,
I could care less what people say, but it's still
yeah,
annoying. He is working on letting me go visit Paul's property
yeah.
with the new owners. And to me, like that's not going to be filmed or anything, but
Mm,
just to me, that's the type of person like that's special to me. That's sacred. And then, ironically, another really close friend of Paul Thompson actually saw the video and reached out and
yeah,
invited me over. And he has the missing 3S red that I've been looking for because Paul Thompson at the end of his life was improving. He called it 3.5S. And if you know, 3S is delight, 4S is probably Maria Rosa, but he had this magenta, this darker flesh he called 3.5S.
Wow.
And so I think that he has this one labeled. So I'm really excited. And he's an older guy, but I'm gonna go visit him in a couple weeks and he wants to share some of the cuttings.
Yeah.
And his are all labeled still, which is even more exciting for me. So to me, it's just like tour meeting these and just, I never would have thought that interviewing Paul Thompson's neighbor would result in something like that.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how things work out in here. Just a journey, and I'm not going to stop, man. I have fun, and I may not make as much content just because I'm more into just not sharing everything, I guess you could
Mm.
say, just because some people or some channels also will take the ideas and make it their own and profit off of that. So I'm more selective about what I share, just because I think that's kind of wrong, man. It's like feel like if you're gonna share information, you should credit your source.
Yeah.
So I'm really big on that personally. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm probably most excited about this season more than ever. And we have a lot of things that I haven't really shared yet, and if they end up being worthy of sharing with the community publicly, or even just sharing pictures and things, I'll probably do that. So yeah, this season's gonna be awesome.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for the time, the generosity, everything today. This has been awesome. It's been like a kid in a candy shop. I've had questions written down, but I'm just rolling. Half of what I'm asking wasn't even on my list. Some of the things on the list didn't get to just because I've just had such a great bit of fun going down the rabbit hole that we've been going down. And there's an old saying like, never meet the people you look up to or never meet your heroes because they often let you down. Like, I can literally say after today that is not true. Like it has been so awesome chatting to you. And I don't want to embarrass you. And this, I'm not trying to suck up. This has just been spectacular. You're so generous. You give so much to the community. For everyone that hasn't seen your content, do. If you've found mine, but you haven't found Paul's, I don't understand how that's happened in the slightest. But please check out Paul's, give him some love, subscribe to his channel, suss out his what plan is that, Paul, all that stuff. Feel free if you're new to my stuff, check that out as well. I'm trying, I'm just having a bit of fun. Mine's a little bit different to Paul. I've got a hell of a lot less plants. I muck around with a little bit of animation and just garbage stuff that makes me laugh. If
Hey
nothing
man,
else.
you get me really intrigued. So you're my favorite YouTube channel for what it's worth
Oh,
about dragon fruit. So I appreciate all the knowledge you're sharing, and you're doing I think we have a similar ideology. Just to share our passion and our mistakes, because a lot of people are so afraid to share their mistakes. And I think you're the first one to say, "Look, man, I screwed up. We shouldn't have done this." And I'm trying to do that as well, because I think if we can learn from each other's mistakes, we get to help a lot more people. So thank you for your kind words. My ego is huge now. Go do a sit up or something, but I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity, reaching out, and letting me share my passion on your channel. So I appreciate that. Hopefully we could do one vice versa, and we could interview you. I was thinking maybe in the future we'll have Scott in it too or something.
beautiful. No, happy to do it again. This was so fun. I can literally talk all day about dragon fruit. That's why I've kind of been kicked out of the house today. I've filmed at my wife's office just because she didn't want me at home. She's like, I'm sick of hearing about all your dragon fruity stuff. So I'm there today. I could do it all day, every day, and that's sort of why I got down this sort of rabbit hole as well. I'm sure yourself too. Today's been
Yeah, I'm hiding in
awesome.
the bathroom here, so here we go.
I have seen a few people walk past in the mirror to use the bathroom, but I didn't want to comment. No, just kidding. Just
Now
kidding.
they're hiding.
No, very good. Thank you so much for this. Subscribe to Paul if you haven't. Feel free to subscribe to me. Suss out all our content. We appreciate the love, but at the end of the day, we both love what we're doing and we love sharing with you guys. So thanks for the time. Thanks for everything. And thanks for if you stuck around and watched this long as well.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I had no idea we'd end up talking this much, so this is awesome. It's been really enjoyable, so thank you.